This is a new Kirblog, and it's all about that one big franchise. You know the one. You know the one who shows up and he's like, this dude is actually a Giorgio Armani. Actually, my dad knows him. Anyway, this question comes from the Geass Prince, who asked a while ago. Also, sorry for commenting again. How dare you? But because I'm so stoked for Star Wars The Force Awakens, I was wondering if you would do a Kirblog on Star Wars and your experience with the movies, animated series, merch, and games if you played them. That is, if you like Star Wars. So this is hot off the heels of me going to see Star Wars The Force Awakens for the second time, actually, in the last month or so. I went to go see it on opening night, actually, with Mike Lucas and Steve Yurko, right before I left to go home for New York. I think I might have mentioned that in one of the Kirblog's before I had recorded a bunch of the rest of Pokemon month, Poke December. Anyway, but I wanted to go see it a second time in IMAX 3D. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, those of you who've been following me on Twitter know that I really dug the movie, had a great time at it. You know, I've already had more than a few people say that I look quite similar to a certain new character that I won't say in case you haven't seen the movie yet. I'm going to actually try to keep this relatively spoiler-free for those of you who have not seen The Force Awakens yet but are, you know, curious to listen to this, because this is going to be my general sort of Star Wars experiences. So I did grow up with the franchise. I was very fortunate that, and I was even, it's funny, I was just saying this on, because I was doing a Let's Play guest spot on Controller Rollers with Jesse Nowak and Mike Hecht when I went to go visit when I was back home for a little while. And I was talking about how I was very lucky that my dad owned the original VHS box set of the first three Star Wars movies. The non-special edition, as far as I know, the unchanged from their theatrical release. I think aside from just the fact that New Hope was later called Episode 4, obviously. But the not shitified, you know, versions of the movies that everybody hates. I grew up seeing all three of them. It's kind of weird to say this because, okay, for one thing, I will say up front, I've never been a gigantic Star Wars fan. Not in sense of like, oh, I don't like Star Wars. I've just never. It's one of those things. It's like Harry Potter, where like I've seen all the Harry Potter movies, but I don't consider myself like a big Harry Potter fan. But I enjoyed what it is that I've seen, and you know what it is that I've experienced completely. Because I mean, you know, in the case of Star Wars, you know, particularly the original trilogy, those are classic pieces of cinema. Of course, they're worth appreciating by absolutely anybody and everybody. But I did grow up with the original three, and weirdly, it's kind of like with a lot of other big movie franchises. Like for instance, one example I love is Back to the Future, where I grew up with Back to the Future as well. I didn't have the you know the tapes of it or anything, but I saw them on TV, and you know I had been aware of them and everything, but I didn't really see them until college, because in college I rented the box set and I watched all three in a row and I became a huge fan and everything. And now I love Back to the Future. In the case of Star Wars, you know, I had seen all three of them, and what I'm implying by this is I remember like tons of stuff about them, but the thing is, as a kid, and especially as you know that young of a kid, I really didn't comprehend a whole lot of what was ever going on in a lot of movies that I watched. They were just kind of like moment to moment sort of things. Like they were just like, oh, and then he fights the guy, and then he goes over here and he talks to this person, and then these two characters kiss or whatever. It's like, you know, even like for kids movies, like, you know, like Disney animated features and things like that, there were cases where I'm just like, what the hell is actually going on in this movie, etc. So like in Star Wars, I really didn't understand anything that was ever happening in those movies as a kid, because I think I just didn't really have the capacity for that at the time that I saw them. And they weren't, I don't know, video game related yet, even though, you know, obviously there's tons of great Star Wars video games, I know. I did own a copy of, which I forget which one it is, but the Rogue Squadron game that was on the GameCube. I think it came with my system, and I think I traded it in later for about $2. $2 whole I got for Rogue Squadron on GameCube. But yeah, so I saw them all. It really says something. I mean, you know, this is kind of a duh sort of thing to say, but in the case of, you know, even though I didn't really understand absolutely everything that was happening in them, and I they didn't leave like the most lasting impact on me as they did for a lot of other people who grew up in the U.S. and, you know, watched these movies as kids and all that, I still remember so many, like, you know, kind of legendary things about them. I mean, I could tell you who all the characters are. I remember all the classic, you know, famous moments from all three of the movies. Yeah, it's like they're just so ingrained in our culture, and especially between like all the parodies and kind of homages that everything in existence have to these movies. It's like, yeah, no shit, you're gonna recognize them. But and I did like the characters, and they were all obviously memorable to me as a kid. So that really says something about just how incredibly impactful they are, even if I don't feel like they are. Like, even though they weren't like, oh man, like I love the Star Wars movies. Oh man, I'm a big fan or whatever. It's like I still remember everything like that like about them in terms of like the iconicness of the characters and the settings and the moments and all that. I will say I did also go see. There's not much to say about this, but I did also go see all 3 of the prequels when they came out in theaters. I remember as a kid kind of liking The Phantom Menace, probably because I also didn't really understand what was going on and just like the cool action moments with the lightsaber duels and the pod racing and all that stuff, and then I guess in the case of and the second one I remember because by the time the second one came out, Attack of the Clones, my mom had gotten together with my now stepdad Kevin. And he's a big Star Wars fan. I don't know if by this point they've gone to go see Episode 7 yet, but he's a big Star Wars fan. And we went to go see Episode 2, and I think that was our first like kind of real bit of communication with me and my stepdad. Was like we were talking about Episode 2, and I was like, yeah, it kind of felt like Episode 1.5 to me. There wasn't really a whole lot to it that was like all that stand out, and there wasn't. And then I did go see Episode 3. Can't remember anything really too much beyond like just going to see it. I don't think anything like really all that in depth happened with it. Like I don't remember if I went to go see it with any friends in particular, any certain family members. It was just so. It feels like it was so long ago by this point. I guess it kind of was. In the case of the other stuff, I've not played the video games. Unfortunately, I know there are plenty of great ones, but I've not played any of them. Unfortunately. The TV stuff, the only things that I've really seen in full, and just because like they were around, were the original Genndy Tartakovsky animated Clone Wars shorts. Mainly just because like, like these are on, and I love Tartakovsky stuff on Samurai Jack and Dexter and all that, which I did enjoy. I've heard Rebels is great. I've heard the Clone Wars series before that was great. I just have not really gotten to sit down and see them at all, and I haven't really gone on my way to, just because I'm not really all that interested in the expanded universe kind of stuff, to be honest. Not to take any credit away from it, I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in it, I guess. And then I guess, kind of coming down to The Force Awakens. So it's funny, seeing it twice now. I'll try to keep this relatively spoiler-free, but a lot of stuff has kind of just been out there. It's a lot of easy things for people to access and see about the movie, even if they haven't seen it already, which, I apologize for, but that's the internet. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. Like, I think it's the most, like, positive, like, impactful experience I've had with a Star Wars movie, probably because at this point I'm familiar enough with the world, I'm cognizant enough to understand what the hell is going on in the story, and I don't know, I guess it just kind of had that, like, even though it's a modern movie, it still had that kind of classical sort of flair that I do appreciate about the original trilogy, the first 3. In seeing the second run through this past week for me, I was kind of hoping, because me and Mike and Steve, we went to go see it a second time, all 3 of us together, along with our friend Brian as well. But we were talking about doing like a marathon of the original movies, because Steve was watching through Return of the Jedi just before we went to go see Force Awakens the first time back in December. And it had been so long since I'd seen this. I'd seen New Hope again semi-recently on TV, but I hadn't seen Empire and Jedi in like so long, like so many years, that I, to the point where when Jedi was playing on DVD or whatever, I didn't remember. I had to ask, like, is this Empire or Jedi? And Steve just looked at me like I had 2 fucking heads. He's like, are you serious? You can't tell which one this is? And it was a little embarrassing. But we wanted to do a marathon and rewatch the original 3, and then also I think it's I forget who did that one cut of like footage from all 3 of the prequels into one thing that kind of is like easily digestible and everything. I would like to see that. I don't really want to do the that one order where it's like 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. I don't really want to do that because I don't have that much interest in watching all of 2 and 3 all over again. But I would watch that super cut of the prequels trilogy, that kind of condenses everything that's important. I would watch that because that sounds a little bit more up my alley, I guess you could say. But I was hoping that I could at least rewatch New Hope again, like, before seeing Force Awakens a second time. Reason being, of course, that the biggest kind of criticism that I've seen that everybody has about the new one is that it's just like it's a remix of the New Hope storyline. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have probably also seen the Nostalgia Critic review and a lot of that stuff about it already, which, made some great points. It's funny. I've seen a lot of really well thought out, very, like, well articulated and, like, poignant kind of criticism. There was another chart my friend Zach Frost linked on Twitter, I think within the last week or so, about comparison between Rey, the new heroine of the movie, and Luke Skywalker, and kind of the differences between them, and how you could kind of consider Rey to be a little bit more of a Mary Sue because she's so, like, perfect and, like, gets a lot of things right in the first time, and Luke is a lot more fallible and relatable in that way, and he's less of a Mary Sue, or Gary Stu, I guess, in his case. And it's funny because seeing a lot of these criticisms, it's like, yeah, like those are all very good points and completely true and completely understandable, but I don't care, and I still really, really enjoyed the movie a lot. I remember when I walked out of it the first time, I was like, wow, that felt like a near perfect movie, which is probably going a little bit too far, because even Steve and Mike were like, yeah, there were some problems with it, but it was just a really great experience. And Mike and Steve, I think, have already seen it 3 times, including when we went to go see it a second ago. So, that in and of itself says something. Granted, they're bigger fans than me, but at the same time, I didn't hesitate to go in to see it in theaters twice, because I was like, yeah, this is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I really, really like the new characters between Rey, Finn, BB-8, Kylo Ren, and even in some ways, like the older versions of the, Han and Leia and Luke, for the amount of time that they got to do stuff in the movie, and Chewie, of course, and R2 and C-3PO and all that. They had some great stuff. It was so weird. I've seen so many people being, like, so critical of Carrie Fisher, I guess, about, like, I don't know much about her personal life, and I don't care, because I don't really care about that sort of stuff with celebrities in general. But I loved her performance. I thought she was, like, kind of a highlight of the movie. Because not that Han Solo isn't great, Harrison Ford is hilarious, but I feel like in Harrison Ford's case, it was just like, all right, I'm gonna do this, but I'm old and tired. And I'm like, yeah, I can respect that, because he's old and probably very tired. And I don't know how enthusiastic Carrie and Mark Hamill were in comparison, but either way, they did great. I really liked what they got to do. John Boyega, Daisy Ridley are amazing performers. Poe was cool too. I don't have as much attachment to as a lot of other people do, but he was cool for what he was worth. General Hux was kind of funny. Snoke seems really interesting. Kylo Ren is just hilarious, and I'm probably going to do him for Halloween next year, or rather this year, I should say. We're in 2016 now, of course. I really enjoyed the movie a lot, and I feel much more generally enthused about Star Wars, more so than I think I ever have been in my life, which is good, because it's something that's so universally, like, known and loved and adored and accepted by everybody, that being able to, like, feel the love of that sort of franchise and be enveloped in I guess the positive side of the fandom community, because I'm sure that there are crazy fucking Star Wars fans that thankfully I have not really had any contact with, because I'm not in that world, so I don't have that bad impression left on me, thank God. But that's not specific to them. There's bad fans in every area, of course. It's just kind of how it goes. But either way, I loved it. I love all the new characters. I am so curious to see more about them in the future, episode 8 and 9 at some point. However long it's going to be between when we get those. And I think this is a really good time to be a Star Wars fan, because there's just so much really great stuff set up for everybody. You know what I mean? It's just great to see that, like, there's a lot to be, like, excited about. I feel personally, like, and there's people are completely entitled to their criticism and their more negative views of it, because Star Wars fans, I feel not so much have a right to be, but are understandably probably very jaded. But to know that a lot of people that are watching this that love Star Wars and love this movie and love, like, how the franchise is being treated now, probably a major part in thanks to a lot of the Disney decisions, whether they have to do with making as much money as possible aside, which is just kind of a given because it's Disney. It's like, yeah, duh. And it's just good. It's a good time to be into Star Wars, and it's a good time to appreciate Star Wars, if anything. So I liked it. Probably watch it again at some point on DVD, so I can listen to Martin Billini's
voice track for the blind on that it's going to be on the DVD. I would absolutely listen to that just because I'm so proud of him for getting that job.
But yeah, that's kind of all there is to say, I guess. So that's going to wrap it up for now. Those are just my initial thoughts of Star Wars and my kind of experience with it over the course of the 27 years I've been alive. 27 whole years that I exist now. In the comments below, tell me your Star Wars experiences. What's your favorite movie of the entire franchise, or favorite character? Do you, any other particular things about the shows and the video games and other parts of the franchise that you really like that I'm sure I've probably understandably missed out on? Let me know. And if you have future suggestions for other Kirblog topics, let me know. Maybe even other, particularly Star Wars related things. This is kind of as much as I have to say about the franchise right now as a whole. But other general Kirblog topics is, go for it. Leave a comment about that, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever you feel like. And that's going to do it. So I will see you all on the dark side. I destroyed him.